In this video, we will be again discussing with the neurology section where I will be dealing chapter 424, 425 and 426 from Harrison, that is mainly about non-Alzheimer's dementias like vascular dementia, Lewy body dementia and frontotemporal dementia. Because the Alzheimer's disease is being discussed in detail in one of the previous lectures. So this video mainly focus upon non-Alzheimer's dementias. First, we will see regarding vascular dementia, which is considered as the most common cause of dementia. And how to define it? This is the cognitive deficit associated with cerebrovascular diseases, and typically it is sporadic. So the genetic factors are not much involved in this particular condition. So what happens here is cerebrovascular diseases like small infarcts, huge infarcts, microbleeds, intracerebral hemorrhage and all will lead to some structural damage, that is disruption of the neuronal networks, mainly the cognitive network, and there will be chronic progressive white matter degeneration. And also because of these infarcts or microbleeds, there will be altered cerebral hemodynamics, mainly hypoperfusion or disrupted autoregulation and all. So these changes will be happening, resulting in marked cognitive impairment. You might have seen many individuals will be presenting with some cognitive impairment, and when we get the imaging done, we might just see multi-infarct or some microbleeds in the CNS. So in that particular condition, we have to consider vascular dementia as the probable reason. So the usual age-related vascular dementia you have understood, but there are some other variants of vascular dementia. For example, a genetic variant called CADASIL. So the full form is cerebral autosomal dominant arteriopathy with subcortical infarcts and leukoencephalopathy. So overall, this particular vascular dementia is genetic related, mainly autosomal dominant, and again we will be able to see the subcortical infarcts leading to leukoencephalopathy. So to understand it better, what happens is there will be mutation in Notch3 gene on chromosome number 19, leading to abnormal accumulation of the proteins inside the vessel wall. So what are these proteins? Actually it is GOM, that is granular osmophilic materials. So these proteins will be accumulated in the vessel wall. That's why it is named as arteriopathy. So this will affect the vascular hemodynamics, leading to subcortical infarcts. That's why the name subcortical infarcts. And finally, it will result in encephalopathy and cognitive impairment. That's why the last letter, that is L, stands for leukoencephalopathy. So this type of dementia presenting with cognitive impairment will be seen in quite early age groups. Early age group individual presenting with subcortical infarct, we have to think of this genetic variant. Other distinct vascular dementia variants are Binswanger disease and the occlusion of artery of Percheron. First, to see the Binswanger disease, here what happens is there will be chronic atherosclerosis leading to subcortical and periventricular white matter degeneration. So you might have seen many times when you get the imaging for a CNS case, the report might be chronic multiple infarcts in and around the ventricles, periventricular infarcts and all. So that individual might develop slow information processing, slow motor functioning, symmetric Parkinsonism and low mood apathy kind of presentations. So everything will get slowed down. That's why we will say all slow in Binswanger disease. In that way we can remember. Coming to the other vascular dementia variant, where the single paramedian artery will get occluded, again vascular related, causing bilateral infarcts of mammillothalamic tract. So if you know, this mammillothalamic tract is related with memory and cognition. That's why the individual will face memory impairment and some other features like vertical gaze palsy and altered mental status. So along with the age-related multi-infarct leading to the common vascular dementias, we have to remember some of the other variants as well, like CADASIL, Binswanger disease and the occlusion of artery of Percheron. Now we will see regarding frontotemporal dementia. In this one, there is genetic involvement, that is, we will be able to see numerous mutations and some genetic predispositions. That's why it can present as familial dementia, or in some individuals it can be sporadic as well. And sometimes we will be able to see hexanucleotide repeat. These repeats will lead to accumulation of the abnormal proteins. So what happens after this mutation or such nucleotide repeat is phosphorylation of tau proteins. If you remember, these were the cytoplasmic fibrin proteins. So these will get phosphorylated, leading to the structural changes in these proteins, and there will be misfolded proteins other than amyloid protein. For example, TDP or FUS proteins will get misfolded and they will start getting accumulated. So why we are mentioning here other than amyloid is because that was very typical of Alzheimer's disease. Here we will be able to see tau proteins, TDP protein and FUS protein. So all these cellular accumulation will lead to again neuronal degeneration. So this is also one of the variant of degenerative dementias. So just to compare with the Alzheimer's dementia, we can see the genes involved are quite different. The protein which is getting accumulated is different from Alzheimer's, and these are cytoplasmic inclusions. Whereas in Alzheimer's disease, they were mainly extracellular amyloid beta deposits. But the end result will be same, that is neuronal degeneration. So how it will progress is, there might be frontal cortex involvement that is getting degenerated, leading to some behavioral abnormalities like disinhibition, hyperorality, apathy and irritability and all. Whereas as the disease advances, it might involve temporal cortex as well, leading to primary progressive aphasia. There will be difficulty with the grammar, as well as there might be semantic dementia. What does this semantic memory actually mean is, these are kind of factual memories. For example, if we ask the individual what is the capital of France, they will not be able to say it as Paris. So these are all the facts related. You can ask anything. Whereas in comparison, we will be able to see episodic memory. There is something called as episodic memory as well. So what does it mean? If you ask the same individual regarding their visit to Paris, they will explain, I remember walking near Eiffel Tower when I visited Paris. So these are the episodic memories. So in semantic, mainly they will say, I know. Whereas when it comes to episodic, they might start with, I remember. So these are some moments or episodes which they will be able to keep in memory for long term. Both of these are actually a long-term memory components only. That's why we will say temporal lobe will deal with the long-term memory. But when it comes to frontotemporal dementia, mainly the semantic memory will be getting affected. The other possibility of progression of these dementias can be subcortical area involvement or brainstem involvement other than frontal lobe and temporal lobe. So there are two typical syndromes when it involves subcortical and brainstem areas, that is progressive supranuclear palsy syndrome, PSP syndrome, or corticobasilar degeneration. So here what happens is, there might be involvement of subcortical area, mainly basal ganglia. That's why they will present with the rigidity. That's why it is considered as Parkinson plus syndrome, Parkinson plus. So because of this subcortical area involvement, they might have rigidity. Also, due to brainstem involvement, we will be able to see square wave jerks and the person will not be able to look down. That's why there might be spectacular falls. Also, due to brainstem involvement, there might be dysarthria, dysphonia or dysphagia. So these are some typical presentation of PSP syndrome. Whereas in corticobasal degeneration, as the name indicates, cortical, that is frontal cortex degeneration will lead to behavioral changes. This was there in frontotemporal dementia as well. But here, particularly, it will progress to involve basal ganglia, again leading to abnormal movements. One of the example is alien hand syndrome, you might have heard, where the individual might be having some abnormal movements of the hand. It is quite an interesting syndrome which you can read about. Next, we will see regarding the Lewy body dementia. So here again, due to advancing age, because of accumulation of some abnormal proteins, intraneuronal cytoplasmic depositions. So what are those proteins getting accumulated in Lewy body dementia are alpha-synuclein and ubiquitin proteins, which are called as Lewy bodies. They will start getting deposited in the cytoplasm of neurons. But these neurons not only will affect the cortex, they will start affecting from myenteric plexus. There might be deposits in the olfactory bulb, leading to some abnormal gastric symptoms. There might be abnormal smell. It might get deposited in the autonomic nervous system, leading to impairment of sympathetic and parasympathetic manifestations. It might get deposited in the brainstem, leading to brainstem particular manifestations like dysphagia, dysarthria or balance related issues. Even it might affect substantia nigra, leading to Parkinsonian features. And limbic system involvement will affect the emotions, memory and cerebral cortex. Depending on the lobe of involvement, it might present with behavioral abnormalities, memory related issues. That's why this ubiquitin is ubiquitous. Almost it will affect the every site of neurons in the body. And along with the abnormal protein deposition. Again, in Lewy body dementia, we might see the involvement of neurotransmitters just like the Alzheimer's disease, where acetylcholine will be deficit, leading to cognitive impairment like inattention or judgment related problems and all. Also, there will be adrenergic deficit, resulting in decreased arousal or decreased alertness. That's why when we are treating Lewy body dementia, we can utilize anticholinesterases as mentioned in the Alzheimer's chapter. For example, RD, rivastigmine, donepezil and galantamine. These will inhibit the central acetylcholinesterase, leading to the increased availability of acetylcholine in the synapses. And we can use the antipsychotic therapy, which will increase the level of adrenaline, noradrenaline or serotonin, resulting in improvement in the arousal or alertness. So just to conclude non-Alzheimer's dementias, mainly we dealt with vascular dementia, frontotemporal dementia and Lewy body dementia. So the primary pathogenesis are in vascular, mainly it is cerebrovascular disease like multiple infarcts or microbleeds and all. Whereas in frontotemporal, mainly due to mutations in multiple genes, it might lead to accumulation of tau proteins, TDP protein or FUS protein. Similarly, in Lewy body dementia, there might be abnormal deposition of alpha-synuclein and ubiquitin, leading to some key clinical features like in vascular dementia, as I mentioned, everything is slow in Binswanger. So, slower processing, slow motor activities and stepwise decline we will be able to see. Whereas in frontotemporal, as the lobe name indicates, due to frontal lobe, there might be behavioral abnormalities. Due to temporal lobe, there might be memory related issues. And in Lewy body dementia, typically we will be able to see visual hallucinations and cognitive fluctuations. When it comes to some markers and specific patterns, vascular dementia, we will be able to see Notch3 gene mutation, particularly in cadacin and periventricular white matter involvement. Whereas for frontotemporal dementia, this hexanucleotide repeat, that is GGG repeat, can be utilized as a marker. Whereas in Lewy body dementia, we will be able to see this ascending Lewy body deposits from myenteric plexus till the cortex. When it comes to treatment, in vascular dementia, we have to manage the vascular risk factors. And for frontotemporal, it is mainly supportive therapy because the usual medications which will increase the acetylcholine levels are not much helpful in frontotemporal dementia because this acetylcholine related mechanism is not involved in the pathogenesis. Whereas for Lewy body, as mentioned, it is almost similar to the management of a Alzheimer's disease case. So, anticholinesterase, antipsychotic medications will be beneficial. So, this was the overall summary of multiple chapters regarding non-Alzheimer's dementias. For the better comparison and understanding, please go and watch the Alzheimer's disease as well. Thank you so much.